Welcome to the in-between,
where shift happens,
the moment between where we are
and where we are going.
We will ask all the questions,
maybe find some answers,
and generally work at being okay.
In the mystery of the in-between.
In today's episode, we are talking about when justice calls. Bum bum.
Bum 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 bum.
Yeah, so welcome everyone. We're not usually this silly. What am I saying? Yeah, we're usually this silly. Welcome to the in-between, where shift happens. The premise of the podcast is we have an agreed upon topic, and one comes with secret questions around the topic so that we can kind of be in the in-between and the raw answers. And, that's how life is, right? But very rarely do we get to prepare for the things that come at us. Sometimes we do, but often we don't. So this is just another practice and example of how we can navigate the in-between. So, so today when justice calls, so I'm just going to start. We're just going to lay it out there. Daniel, you ready?
I'm ready as I'm going to be.
Maybe start us off by talking about how showing up in spaces for equity, liberation, collective healing, justice, all those things. How do you see that as a sacred act of spiritual practice?
Oh, wow.
Is it? Is it not?
Is it?
It is.
I think it certainly can be. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be for everyone. I mean, heck, I maybe it could even be performative and it's not meaningful at all. I don't know. I think for me, it is a sacred act in the sense that, well, I'll start with this. I think when this topic or topics like this come up, I think the first thing that comes up for me and probably for a lot of people is like, oh man, I'm supposed to be out there in like all these protests and marches and like, and it actually feels like it comes with stress of like, how do I figure out how to take off work and go to all these places and which ones are the right ones and where are they? And part of that feels dangerous. And like, there's all these things for me that come with that. And it takes a practice to remember that while that's really great to do that, not everyone is going to feel called to doing that. And there are so many other ways. I mean, probably an infinite number of ways, unique ways to be active and stand for justice and equity. That I think it's easy to forget that. Like for me, it is easy to forget that. And it is a practice to remember, just by being intentional and by showing up in spaces is the practice. Is for me is the spiritual part of it all, right? Remembering that we are all connected, all, we are so interconnected in everything we do. Just being willing to have an open conversation about something that maybe I wasn't before, or maybe someone else wasn't necessarily going to have. Or so, somebody makes an off the cuff comment and it, turning that into a conversation, being curious and kind of asking them more about it rather than letting it kind of slide. I think, in the past for me, it has been really easy to let off the cuff comments that kind of irk me, kind of just let them go. And I make judgmental thoughts to myself about that person and what they obviously meant by that and why they said it and all those things. I think the quote spiritual practice in there for me has been, when I remember, when I have the energy, has been to not go to that place and try to remember to be curious and ask a question about it.
Yeah.
Tell me more. How did you come to that conclusion, or, whatever the question is, but really get into a conversation with them as a person, and a lot of the times the things that I would have been judgmental about, or maybe I'm still judgmental about, do lead to a much deeper conversation where there is a very human, experience underneath getting to that comment. And, I don't know we're necessarily out here changing anybody's mind. And I don't know that that is the goal, but, I think that is the practice, right? The practice is being people together. And,
Yeah.
For me, maybe that doesn't immediately feel as impactful as I think being part of some march might feel. I think the immediate impact is just as great, having those kind of conversations with people. And maybe more so, right? I mean, having a say direct influence on somebody's life, who knows what those conversations lead to, right?
Yeah. I think, for me, like kind of what you're saying too is like when people hear like this topic, and I'm, myself included, like you immediately go to those sorts of expressions, right? And, for me, I think the spiritual practice of it is embodying those concepts
Mm,
in our everyday life, that it is not
yeah.
something that's separate. It's not something that we do on a Saturday or something
Right.
that we have
Right.
to schedule time to do, or it has to show up this way, but instead, like embodying equity, embodying this liberation idea, embodying this understanding of the need and our responsibility for collective healing. And so, like, if that just becomes part of our DNA, right? Our activity,
Mm-hmm.
um, then I think for me, I think that's the practice of it, because I think that just like embodying any sort of uh, value, it's something that we have to practice. We have to kind of immerse ourselves in, so that it becomes like second nature. It's like a default. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
for me, it's like this idea of standing in those spaces. It needs to become our default, so that it's just who we are.
Yeah. It's not an add-on.
Right. It's not an add-on. It's not a,
Yeah.
okay, let's do this when times are challenging, right? But I think it's, you know, equity, justice, diversity, belonging, like all those concepts. That's something that needs to become part of just the inner workings.
Yeah.
And I think that we probably underestimate how that shows up, like on a daily basis, right? It doesn't have to show up in, like you're saying, like protests or these, like what you would think, these large sort of high profile actions. But I think that the magic and the transformative quality comes in those small adjustments and those small expressions in our life, whether it be with our neighbor, whether it be with our family, whether it be with, people in our spiritual community, right? It's, I don't know. It's just that it becomes the habit of our life. It just becomes that thing. And I think that that's challenging. I think just like any opportunity, we're trying to show up in a way that is standing in that kind of gap. I think that it is.
That reminds me of there's a quote in Lord of the Rings from Gandalf. I mean, he's talking about Saruman and the evil and whatever, and I don't know that we would necessarily use that language, but I just looked it up real quick because it's good and speaks directly to this. And he says, Saruman believes it is only great power that can hold evil in check, but that is not what I have found. I found that it is the small things, every act of normal folk that keeps the darkness at bay. Simple acts of kindness and love.
That's good stuff.
It is. He says it a lot more.
I mean, drop the mic. I mean, like, conversation done, right?
He presents it a lot better than I just did, but Yeah, I mean, I think that's so true that it really is easy to think that that massive change, or change in general, has to come from some sort of like great power, and yet, that really never. I mean, I guess there are times maybe where that is true, but I think the change that really matters, or the change that really makes a difference, really is the small things. It is the everyday acts of kindness, and, like you're saying, just kind of looking to make those shifts in ourselves so that we show up differently, so that whatever influence we have in our space, we're having different conversations, we're showing up in a way where other people can show up differently, and then they show up differently, and it kind of just ripples out and out and out. We don't necessarily see massive change because of that, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening.
And I think, it's also oftentimes we kind of get in this mode for, all right, something needs to be done when it directly impacts our own well-being.
Yeah.
And so I think, as people, in spiritual circles, understanding the connection and the inner being that we all have, to quote Thich Nhat Hanh, his formulation of that word interbeing, that we enter are, which I love.
We enter are,
which I think is just fabulous.
Yeah.
I think it's just important that just highlights our responsibility to each other, not for each other, but to each other. And embodying, liberation and equity and the things that support collective healing aren't just about when it affects us.
Yeah.
Right. It's more altruistic than that. It's understanding that our responsibility to one another.
Yeah.
And I think that it's imperative. I think it is the natural outpicturing of what it means to be a spiritual person who is engaging in, whatever tradition you have. But I think it's just an outpicturing of that, for it to show up in ways where we stand in the spaces for one another.
Yeah.
I think that far too long, we have sat by, when I say we, it's that kind of collective we, but, religious, mainstream religious folks, spiritual folks, it's like, oh, I'm going to kind of work on my own stuff and like, this out here, like in the world, not of it sort of mentality where,
yeah, right.
Yeah, when that would be nice, but we don't live in a bubble, right? We don't operate in a vacuum. We don't create in a vacuum. And so we can't separate ourselves from the experiences around us.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we have to be like taken down by them or absorbed by them. But I think that there's a calling for us not to be afraid, or not necessarily not to be afraid, but to be afraid and to move anyway.
Do it anyway. Yeah.
Kind of like Rumi in one of his masterful writings, who said, move, but don't move the way fear makes you move. And so for me, that just means like moving with intention, moving from our values, getting clear on what our values are, and then moving from those spaces.
Yeah.
Because values are more than just words. Values actually are the activity of our lives. And so it's like, I don't know, just for me, it's just this natural outflowing of living from our values.
And doesn't that kind of feel like a big shift, like culturally, societally? Like, I know, I think for one, like that idea that we don't live in a bubble. I don't know that there was ever anyone really like walking around being like, I live in a bubble. Screw everybody else,
Probably a lot of people wishing they did.
Well, yeah. But I think it was easy enough to kind of in the past easy enough to kind of brush aside the experience of people unlike you, unlike yourself, because we didn't really have a direct realization or insight into the experience of others. But like, I think the internet, in the last 20 years, certainly the last 10 years, has put the direct experience of other people right in our face. And I mean, look at like kids now versus kids 25, 30 plus years ago, and it's a totally different experience, right? I mean, they're literally growing up watching the experience of other people from all over the place having incredibly different experiences. They're watching it in live time, and I think that is such an impactful thing. And I know we've talked about this before. I mean, even with like I know the war on Ukraine for me was the first time where we were watching people live stream like war up close in person, real time, all day long. I mean, you can go on TikTok and watch it whenever you wanted and see what is actually happening, like what it is actually like. And you didn't have to rely on news or whatever to kind of get a filtered version of it. You were getting the real thing in real time. Whereas in the not so recent past, your local newspaper would publish things and they'd be a week old, and it would be somewhere feeling very far removed from you because it wasn't happening in your town or your city or whatever. So I think that is leading to, I don't know that we're there, but I think that is leading to a very big shift societally and culturally in how we live by our values or not, right? Because I think it's putting in our face like, do you really live by your vow? Like, do you really believe that?
Yeah.
Do you? You say you do,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things are happening a lot closer to home for a lot of people now than ever in the past too. That is also really pushing back on what we say we believe, and that 1950s American value of like the perfect family and the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids and a dog, right? Like that whole facade doesn't really fly anymore. So I think we really are shifting, and maybe we're a lot further along in that shift than we realize. I don't know. I could kind of hope. But really shifting towards like being called to actually live by the things we say we value, and not say we value things because we think it's a good thing to say, or we've been told or taught or shown that it's a good thing to say, but never really had to question whether we actually believe them or not. Or the vast majority of people maybe were not being called to or asked or forced to question whether they believe those things or not. And now I think a whole lot more people are.
Yeah. Well, and I think we can't, to your point about just the like in real time ability to be in the experiences of others. It's like we can no longer be like, oh, I didn't know that was happening, or I didn't know.
Yeah, you chose not to know now.
Like, I didn't know that there's a need for justice in this area. I didn't know that there's inequity in this area.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, systems and frameworks and legislations and all the things are impacting these people. Like, I didn't know that. And so I think, and it's really interesting. I see sometimes people posting on social media and stuff about how I just had to turn the news off because it was just so negative, and I just had to sit and focus on the positive. And for me, I think what privilege it is.
Must be nice
to turn off the news and say, oh, I'm not going to let that affect me, right? it is very privileged to be able to do that and not have to like watch the news to make sure your rights aren't being voted on, or make sure that certain legislative things aren't impacting your safety or your family's safety or your ability to feed your family, like all the things. And so I don't know. It's just a very interesting. It's an interesting and beautiful opportunity that we have to because we no longer have to guess where our energy and focus is needed.
Yeah.
It's very apparent to us. And so I think it's just stepping in those spaces. And and like everything is not for everybody, but really recognizing what is yours to do. Because I guarantee it's something. We can say, okay, that's not mine to do. We can't say that about everything, right?
Right. Something's got to be.
There is something. I mean, myself included. I'm not like coming down on anybody else. I mean, myself included. It's so easy to be like, oh, that doesn't really affect me as much, But I think it is a beautiful opportunity then to utilize this activity in the world as a spiritual practice, because that's spirituality. It's not just the internalization of the principles and ideas, but it is the living of it that makes it the spiritual, makes it the ality, right? It makes it the action. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I could go on and on about that.
Yeah. Well, I think that idea of like, well, here, talk about saying we value one thing and then acting in a different way. This idea, like you said, the news thing, like turning off the news. Like, how many people say they believe in, like something, they believe in oneness, right? The interconnectedness of all things, and yet don't believe it enough that whatever they're seeing on the news actually affects them.
Yeah.
Right? Like we believe the idea that it sounds good, it makes us feel good, but not to the extent that we're willing to actually witness what other people are going through. Right? That, oh, well, that's I'm not connected enough to them for me to want to know what's actually happening. I mean, and for me, I just can't imagine not, like, at some point, yes, it can get overwhelming seeing all of or even half of the things or some of the things that are going on. But I couldn't imagine not knowing. I couldn't imagine not wanting to be aware of what's happening around us. And yeah, it's hard because there's a lot of really hard things going on. But I think there are so many hard things going on because so many people have turned an eye to it. Because, oh, that's happening over there to them and we're not the same,
I think we're in a brilliant place to be able to just shift a lot of things, because we're seeing it. We're seeing what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And then we move in that direction. And so I think that, and yeah, it's hard. And I think we all want to do that. And we all have various reasons and fears, and that's okay, right? That's okay. And we were working through that. But I think to really embody this understanding of interconnectedness, we're going to have to shift in how we demonstrate that. And I think folks are. I mean, I think there is definitely an energy moving that, like, oh, okay, like there's some stuff going on and we need that's not okay, and then standing in that. And so, and I think it's a beautiful opportunity for spiritual communities as well, to be an example of what that activity looks like in the world, right? And from that space of understanding and knowing our interconnectedness. So it's a beautiful opportunity. And I mean, I see so many people engaging in just brave and courageous acts of answering that call to justice, answering that call. And I think for us to continue to move in that direction, to continue to ask, what is mine to do? Continue to ask, where can I put my support? What can I do? Because we can all do something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And there's no hierarchy of doing that one's better than the other. It's just that energy of movement.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think that's answering the call to justice. So one takeaway, we always do this at the end. One takeaway when justice calls.
I think it's that, I'm gonna say this with a grain of salt. It almost doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as you're doing something, like you said before, like we find the direction and move in that direction. Like fear might call us to move away, but we're gonna go do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's okay to be afraid. Do it anyway. Right. Like it probably doesn't matter what the thing is. Do something in that direction.
Yeah, I think for me too is just continuing to just lean in and open up my eyes, not turn away.
Yeah.
I think for me, and I think that's important for us to do that, to not turn away. Because I think in not turning away, we really will find the ways that we need to act and move forward.
Yeah.
When justice calls, we are here answering the call.
That's right.
Well, thanks everyone for being in this conversation. And it's not the be all end all. It's just beginning the conversation, continuing the conversation, and being in the conversation on what is ours to do in this moment to begin to continue to support our understanding of interconnectedness and what that looks like. So as always, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, we will see you in the in-between.
Nobody really enjoys being in the in-between.
But thanks for being here anyway.
We may not have found all the answers,
But certainly some. And maybe more importantly,
a little shift has happened.
and the beauty of it all is that we are not alone in the in-between.
So until next time, we hope a lot of shift happens.